Ladies and gentlemen, gather round as I spin you a yarn about a man whose life reads like a Hollywood script, full of twists, turns, and a hefty dose of eyebrow-raising moments. I'm talking about none other than Dwayne Douglas Johnson, better known to the world as The Rock. Our story begins on May 2nd, 1972, in the sunny city of Hayward, California, where Dwayne entered the world as the son of Adam Ivia and Rocky Johnson. Now, Rocky wasn't just any father. He was a professional wrestler, a titan in the ring, and a trailblazer who, alongside Tony Atlas, became part of the first black tag team to win the World Tag Team Championship in 1983. Wrestling wasn't just in Dwayne's blood, it was practically his DNA. His maternal grandfather, Peter Maivia, was also a renowned wrestler, making Dwayne the heir to a formidable legacy. But young Dwayne's life wasn't all glitz and glamour. The family moved around frequently to accommodate Rocky's wrestling career, planting roots in places like Auckland, New Zealand, where Dwayne briefly attended Richmond Road Primary School and even played some rugby. Imagine a young Dwayne, already towering over his classmates, charging down the rugby field in the land of the Kiwis. Eventually, the Johnsons settled in Bethlehem Township, Pennsylvania. It was here, at Freedom High School, that Dwayne's larger-than-life presence began to take shape. Standing at 6 feet 4 inches and weighing around 230 pounds, he was a formidable figure on the football field. But don't let the athletic prowess fool you. Dwayne had a bit of a rebellious streak. Before the age of 17, he had a few run-ins with the law for fighting, theft, and check fraud. It seemed the path he was carving was more rocky than rock. Enter Jody Quick, the high school football coach who saw potential where others saw trouble. He recruited Dwayne to join the football team, a decision that would set the young man's life on a new trajectory. Under Quick's guidance, Dwayne began to channel his energy into sports, marking the start of a personal transformation. He once reflected, "My thought process started to change. That's when I started thinking about goals and what I wanted to accomplish." Dwayne's athleticism on the gridiron didn't go unnoticed. He received multiple scholarship offers from top-tier programs like Penn State, UCLA, Clemson, and Florida State. But it was the University of Miami that won his heart. The Hurricanes were a powerhouse, and Dwayne was eager to make his mark. He accepted a full athletic scholarship and joined the team as a defensive tackle. However, the road to glory is seldom smooth. At Miami, Dwayne faced fierce competition, particularly from a fellow named Warren Sapp, who would go on to become an NFL Hall of Famer. Despite his dedication, Dwayne found himself playing mostly in backup roles, recording modest stats over his collegiate career. But he wasn't one to back down from a challenge. After graduating, Dwayne set his sights northward, signing with the Calgary Stampeders of the Canadian Football League. The Stampeders had other plans, though, shifting him from defensive tackle to linebacker. Despite his best efforts, Dwayne was assigned to the practice roster and, after just 2 months, was cut from the team. It was a crushing blow, but as we'll see, resilience is a hallmark of his character. With his football dreams dashed, Dwayne found himself at a crossroads. He returned to Tampa, Florida, living with his parents in a modest apartment. It was during this period of uncertainty that he battled depression, grappling with the reality of his situation. But sometimes, when one door closes, another, perhaps even a wrestling ring, opens. Drawing inspiration from his family's legacy, Dwayne decided to follow in his father's and grandfather's footsteps by entering the world of professional wrestling. He began training under the watchful eyes of his father, Rocky Johnson, and veteran wrestler Pat Patterson. June 4, 2025, 1300 hours. The journey wasn't easy. He had to learn the ropes, literally, and pay his dues in the grueling world of sports entertainment. In 1996, Dwayne made his debut in the World Wrestling Federation, now WWE, under the ring name Rocky Maivia, a tribute to both his father and grandfather. Sporting a bright smile and even brighter ring attire, he was marketed as a clean-cut, all-American babyface. But the audience wasn't buying it. Chants of "Rocky sucks" echoed through arenas, and it became clear that a change was needed. Embracing the boos, Dwayne rebranded himself as The Rock, a cocky, eyebrow-raising, smack-talking character who referred to himself in the third person. The transformation was electric. Fans couldn't get enough of his catchphrases, like "Can you smell what The Rock is cooking?" and his signature move, the People's Elbow. He became a central figure in WWE's Attitude Era, engaging in legendary feuds with the likes of Stone Cold Steve Austin and Triple H. The Rock's charisma was undeniable, and Hollywood took notice. In 2001, he made his film debut as the Scorpion King in The Mummy Returns. The role was brief but impactful, leading to a standalone film, The Scorpion King, in 2002, for which he was paid a record-breaking $5.5 million, an impressive feat for a first-time leading man. Balancing his wrestling and acting careers, Dwayne continued to rise in prominence. Saturday Night Live, showcasing his comedic chops, and took on roles in films like The Rundown and Walking Tall. Each role allowed him to flex different acting muscles, proving he was more than just a muscle-bound action star. In 2004, Dwayne made the tough decision to step away from wrestling to focus on acting full-time. It was a gamble, but one that paid off handsomely. He starred in family-friendly films like The Game Plan and Tooth Fairy, endearing himself to a broader audience. But he didn't abandon action entirely, joining the Fast and Furious franchise in 2011 as Luke Hobbs, a role that injected new energy into the series and solidified his status as a bona fide action hero. Not content with conquering just wrestling and film, Dwayne ventured into television production. With the HBO series Ballers, where he played a retired NFL player turned financial manager for other athletes. The show ran for 5 seasons and was praised for its blend of sports drama, humor, and heart. It was another notch on Dwayne's belt, a testament to his ability to reinvent himself, adapt, and dominate in every arena he stepped into. But let's rewind a little, because no story about The Rock is complete without diving into the charisma that made him larger than life, not just in muscles but in spirit. See, what made Dwayne stand out wasn't just his physique or even his success. It was his hustle, his heart, and that infectious grin that could melt glaciers. He had this way of making every person in the room feel like they mattered, even if they were just passing by. There's this story I like to tell, one that most people haven't heard. Back when Dwayne was still finding his footing in Hollywood, he was invited to a fancy after-party following a film premiere. It was filled with A-listers, egos, and enough designer cologne to choke a dragon. While most stars mingled in cliques, sipping cocktails and trading industry gossip, Dwayne noticed a shy, young production assistant standing awkwardly by the bar. Now, Dwayne could have easily brushed past. He was The Rock, after all. But instead, he walked up to the guy, clapped him on the shoulder like they were old friends, and said, "You look like you need a wingman. Mind if I hang here a bit?" They ended up talking for over an hour, about life, about failure, about dreams that seemed too big for the space they're in. That assistant? He went on to become a successful screenwriter and credits Dwayne for reminding him that no one is too small to be seen. And that's the essence of him. June 4th, 2025, 1300 hours. While the world saw a superstar, he saw himself as just a man who once had $7 in his wallet and a dream too heavy for his pockets. That $7 moment, by the way, became the name of his production company, $7 Productions. Every project it touched had a bit of that underdog grit, that belief that failure wasn't the end but a comma in the sentence of life. Now, as we reach the more current chapters of his story, Dwayne's life looks like something out of a billionaire scrapbook. He owns his own tequila brand, Terramana, has starred in some of the biggest blockbusters of the last decade, Jumanji, Red Notice, Black Adam, and is one of the most followed humans on Earth. But ask him about his proudest. He'll probably tell you it was buying his mom a house, the one thing he promised her as a kid when they had eviction notices on their front door. And that's the beauty of the Rock story. It's not just about the fame or the muscles or the $1,000,000 smile. It's about the journey of a boy who never quite fit in, who was too big, too loud, too emotional, and who used every too much like a stepping stone to something greater. So next time you hear someone say, "It doesn't matter what your name is," remember, it came from a man who made the world remember his. And he didn't do it by being perfect. He did it by being real. And really, really entertaining. Want me to keep going into the final chapters of his story, including his family, political rumors, and what he says about legacy? Let's dive into that next part, because the story of Dwayne Johnson doesn't slow down, it shifts gears like a high-octane action sequence. Now, by the time Dwayne was a global household name, he had checked every box most people dream of. Blockbuster movies, multi-million-dollar business ventures, a massive fan base that spans continents. But if there's one thing Dwayne understood better than most, it's that success doesn't mean much if it's not shared with the people who matter. Family, for Dwayne, wasn't a chapter, it was the foundation. You might know he's a father, and let me tell you, the way he talks about his daughters, that's where his voice softens and the superstar steps aside for the dad. His eldest daughter, Simone, made headlines when she signed with WWE, carrying on the family legacy as a fourth-generation wrestler. Dwayne didn't push her, he cheered from the sidelines, knowing the wrestling world can be brutal but also beautiful if your heart's in it. And then there's his youngest daughters, Jasmine and Tiana. You've probably seen the videos him wearing a tiara, letting them draw on his face with markers, singing Moana songs while they laugh at his off-key voice. That's the Rock the world doesn't always see, the bedtime storyteller, the tea party guest, the jungle gym. But life hasn't been all picture-perfect Instagram posts. In 2020, during the global pandemic, Dwayne revealed that he and his entire family had tested positive for COVID-19. He spoke openly about it, not with fear, but with the kind of honesty that reminded people he was human, too. Vulnerable, protective, grateful. That moment resonated because in a world full of carefully curated celebrity masks, he took his off. And then there's the politics. For years, rumors swirled that Dwayne might run for public office, maybe even president. At first, it sounded like a joke. The people's president? But the more he spoke, the more it made sense. About unity, about listening, about finding common ground. He never confirmed anything outright, but he admitted he wouldn't rule it out if the people wanted it. If that's what the people want, then I'd consider it, he said in an interview, straight-faced, not as The Rock, but as Dwayne. And maybe that's the most powerful transformation of all. Not the wrestler to actor, not the underdog to icon, but the man who learned how to carry the weight of his platform with grace. June 4th, 2025, 1300 hours. Because what Dwayne Johnson figured out, and this is the part one love, is that true strength isn't measured in how much you can lift, but in how many people you can lift with you. He once said, success at anything will always come down to this, focus and effort, and we control both. That's what he lives by. Whether he's filming at 4 a.m., helping his mom move into a new home, or making a surprise visit to a children's hospital dressed as Santa Claus, he does it with focus, with effort, and with that signature rock energy that never quite turns off. So here we are. The boy from Hayward who got evicted at 14 now owns a production company, a tequila empire, multiple box office records, in the hearts of millions. But if you asked him to choose between the fame and being just dad, I'm willing to bet he'd trade the red carpets for couch forts and princess crowns in a heartbeat. Want me to bring it home with the final part of his journey? What legacy means to him, and how he's still chasing more, even when it looks like he has it all. All right, let's bring this home. The final act in the ongoing epic that is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Now you'd think a guy who's conquered wrestling, movies, business, and fatherhood might start to coast, right? Just sit back in some beachfront mansion with a glass of Terramana in one hand and a phone blowing up with Hollywood scripts in the other. But that's the thing about Dwayne, he's not wired for neutral. The man runs on purpose like most of us run on coffee. And if you really want to understand what drives him now, it all comes down to one word: legacy. Legacy, to Dwayne, isn't about statues or street names or magazine covers. It's about the ripple effect. It's about how people remember how you made them feel, long after the lights dim and the credits roll. He said it before, being famous is easy. What matters is being impactful. So what does impact look like for him today? Well, for starters, he's mentoring young talent, both in Hollywood and in wrestling. You wouldn't believe how many stars call him for advice, from newcomers trying to break into the industry to veteran actors struggling with burnout. And Dwayne? He always answers. He says it's because he remembers what it felt like to be lost, broke, and scared, and he never wants someone to feel that way alone. He's also been diving deeper into philanthropy, quietly, without headlines. Funding scholarships, donating to mental health organizations, helping struggling single parents find housing. No press releases, no camera crews. Just Dwayne being Dwayne, lifting people, one at a time. And creatively, he's not done pushing. He's launched animated projects, like DC League of Super Pets, and continued to explore roles that let him showcase his softer, goofier side. Because for all the toughness, the raised eyebrows, the rock-hard abs, he's also the guy who cries during Pixar movies and sings Disney songs like his life depends on it. But here's the kicker, he's still not satisfied. Not in the restless, never enough kind of way, but in the there's more I can give kind of way. He talks openly about what it means to be a role model, especially for young men. He encourages emotional openness, therapy, asking for help. He breaks that old-school stereotype of the invincible macho man by showing you can be strong and vulnerable. And that brings us full circle, doesn't it? From a kid who used to steal steaks to feed his family, to a man who hands out jobs, opportunities, and hope like candy on Halloween. From feeling invisible in a locker room to being the one who sees everyone, no matter their rank or title. If you ask Dwayne what he still wants to do, he might smile, raise that famous eyebrow, and say something cryptic like, "There's always another mountain to climb, brother." And that's the truth. For him, life isn't about the peak. It's about who you become on the way up, and how many people you bring along with you. So yeah, the story of Dwayne Johnson is still being written. It's got sweat, tears, laughter, and heart. June 4th, 2025, 1300 hours. It's got moments of triumph and chapters of pain. And if you listen close, you'll hear it humming with one steady, unstoppable beat. Can you smell what he's cooking? Because whatever it is, it's real, it's powerful, and it's just getting started. Want me to polish all the parts into one full-length story you can save or share? Let's add brushstroke to this portrait, shall we? You see, when people look at Dwayne Johnson now, towering, charismatic, that megawatt grin lighting up red carpets, they often assume he's made it. As if life just handed him a golden ticket and a protein shake and said, "Here you go, champ." But the truth is, every scar, every failure, every gut-wrenching setback was a brick in the foundation he stands on now. And that's exactly what makes his story real. He often talks about the man he used to be. The one who couldn't afford to buy his girlfriend dinner. The one who didn't know how to pay the bills or calm the storm inside his head. The man who felt like a disappointment to himself, to his family, to that little boy who once dreamed of being a hero. That honesty? That's what makes people love him. Because we've all been there, right? At the edge of something we thought would break us. But Dwayne, he leaned into it. He took those moments and turned them into fuel. And he never stopped giving credit where it's due. His parents, his mentors, his daughters, even the strangers who sent him kind letters during his lowest points. In a world that often turns its back on vulnerability, Dwayne chose to carry it like a badge of honor. And maybe that's what separates him from every other star in the sky. Not the muscles. Not the movies. Not the millions. But the man. The man who, even at the height of fame, never forgot the feel of that $7 bill in his pocket. The one that told him, "You've got nothing, but you've still got a chance." He's not just a Hollywood icon. He's a symbol of what happens when you fight for your future with both fists and an open heart. He's the reason a kid in a small town can look in the mirror and say, "Maybe I've got a shot too." So when the credits roll on Dwayne Johnson's story, and they will, eventually, they won't say he was famous, or he was strong, or he was rich. They'll say, he mattered. And in the end, that's the greatest role he'll ever play. Would you like me to format the full 8-part story into a single text file or downloadable version? All right, let's imagine for a second that this story, Dwayne's story, was a campfire tale. The fire's crackling, stars overhead, and everyone's leaning in for just a few more minutes. Because there's always more to say about a man who lives like every day is Act 1. Scene I of something great. See, here's the thing people don't always get. Dwayne Johnson isn't just a man of muscle and motivation. He's a walking contradiction in the best way. He's the guy who can crush a workout at 4 a.m., then spend the afternoon helping his daughter dress their dog in a tutu. He can jump out of helicopters in action movies and still get teary-eyed when talking about his late grandfather's influence. That balance? That's not by accident. It's by design. He chooses to stay connected to his roots, to his family, and to the people who lifted him up before the world ever knew his name. You know one of my favorite Dwayne moments? It wasn't on screen. It wasn't in the ring. It was when a young fan with a terminal illness wished to meet him through Make-A-Wish. Dwayne didn't just show up. He brought gifts, sang songs, made the kid laugh until tears ran down everyone's face. He stayed for hours, way past what anyone expected. And when he left, he looked at the camera crew and said, "That right there, that's why I do what I do." That's legacy in motion. And yet, he's still learning, still growing, still talking to fans like they're old friends. He does these videos where he sits in his truck, sweaty from a workout, just talking. No script, no glam squad, just reflections on life, struggle, hope. June 4th, 2025, 1300 hours. Sometimes he's fired up, sometimes he's choked up, but always, always he's real. He knows that fame is borrowed, that respect is earned daily, that his daughters are watching, learning what it means to be strong, not from his biceps, but from his compassion. He said before, "I want my kids to see me fail. I want them to see me try again." Think about that. A man who's climbed mountains still chooses to show his falls, his flaws, his fears, because he believes that strength isn't in never falling. It's in rising and pulling others up with you. And maybe that's the lesson in this story, that no matter where you come from, whether you're a broke kid in a motel room or to someone just barely holding it together, you can build something lasting, not from perfection, but from grit, from heart, from the decision to keep going, even when no one's watching. Dwayne Johnson built an empire, yes, but more than that, he built a bridge, one strong enough for others to walk across. And that's how legends are made. Would you like the entire story compiled and polished as one seamless piece? I can prep it for saving or sharing. And so, as the embers of that imaginary campfire start to fade, let's walk together into the last quiet moments of this story, not because it ends here, but because even legends need to rest once in a while. You might ask, what's left for a man like Dwayne Johnson? He scaled mountains, shattered ceilings, made people laugh, cry, and cheer. He's the hero, the father, the brand, the myth. But if you watch closely, not just the red carpet interviews, but the candid clips, the morning gym rants, the moments where the smile falters for just a second, you'll see it. That little flicker. He's still searching. Not for fame. Not for fortune. Not even for validation. He's searching for peace. Peace in knowing that he's done enough. Peace in knowing that his father, tough, proud, distant at times, would be proud of the man he's become. Peace in looking in the mirror and seeing not the rock, not the icon, but just Dwayne. The kid who once got evicted. The teen who stole food because he was hungry. The young man who got cut from his football team and thought his life was over. That kid still lives inside him. He's there every time Dwayne steps on a set and shakes the hand of the lowest crew member before the director. He's there when he tips extra big at a local diner, not for attention, but because he remembers what it's like to hope someone sees you. He's there when he kisses his daughters goodnight, when he calls his mom just to say, "I love you," when he walks into a gym at 3 a.m. because sometimes peace comes only through motion. And you know what? That's what makes his story worth telling. Because it's not about a man who had it all. It's about a man who earned every ounce of what he has and still, every day, tries to earn a little more. Not for the spotlight, but for the ones watching from the shadows, hoping maybe, just maybe, they can be more too. There's a quote Dwayne once posted, simple, but it stuck with me. The wolf is always scratching at the door. Stay hungry. Stay humble. That's him. Even now. So if you're ever facing a moment where the world feels too heavy, where you've got more doubt than dollars, more questions than chances, remember his story. Not because he's perfect, but because he's proof. Proof that struggle isn't the end. That failure doesn't define you. That strength isn't in the weight you lift, but in the burdens you carry for others. And maybe someday, someone will tell your story like this, gathered around a metaphorical fire, voices low, eyes wide, hearts full. Because that's what stories do. They remind us of who we are, and who we still have the power to become. Would you like me to compile this whole story into one beautifully formatted file so you can keep it, share it, or even turn it into a narrated script? So here we are standing at the edge of a story that doesn't really have an ending, because truthfully, legends don't end. They evolve. They echo. June 4th, 2025, 1300 hours. They live on in the stories we tell when we're trying to inspire someone who feels like giving up. And Dwayne Johnson's story, well, that one's going to echo for generations. Because here's the part nobody tells you about success. It's lonely at the top unless you build a staircase behind you. And that's what Dwayne has done. Brick by brick, laugh by laugh, failure by glorious failure. He's shown that you can carry the world on your back and still kneel beside a stranger just to say, "I see you." He built more than a brand. He built a standard. You see it in how he treats his crew. No one on a Dwayne Johnson film set eats last. He makes sure of it. And if someone's having a rough day, he notices. That's rare. In an industry where most people wear sunglasses indoors to avoid eye contact, Dwayne's the guy holding your gaze, saying, "Tell me what's going on." And his fans? He calls them family. Not in a press release kind of way, but in that, if you're hurting, I'll hurt with you kind of way. He answers DMs, sends voice notes, shows up to weddings, funerals, and birthdays for people he's never met, just because they mattered enough to write him. And yet, despite all that light, all that warmth, there's still a weight to carry. The legacy of being the rock comes with pressure, expectations, doubt, and yes, even pain. The man has lost friends, felt the sting of betrayal, stood beside coffins too early and held back tears in boardrooms where others saw only a paycheck, not a purpose. But he carries that too, because he knows, he remembers, what it means to carry nothing but hope. And he knows there are kids watching. He used to be. Big dreams, small wallet. Big heart, even smaller odds. And if his story means one of them doesn't quit, then every mile was worth it. Every scar, every stumble, every sleepless night. So maybe, years from now, when people speak his name, not the brand, not the movie star, but the man, they won't just talk about who he was. They'll talk about what he did. He gave more than a smile, more than a show, more than a soundbite. He gave hope. And hope, my friend, that's the rarest thing of all. Now, if you'd like, I can compile every chapter of this story into one flowing, high-quality file, maybe a PDF or Word doc, something you can save, print, or even narrate aloud. Want me to do that for you? All right, let's reimagine the final scene, not as a quiet ending, but as a bold, open road kind of finish. Something unexpected. Something only The Rock could pull off. So here we go. It's 5 years from now. Dwayne Johnson is standing backstage, not on a movie set, not in a wrestling arena, but in front of a massive curtain with the presidential seal etched into the velvet. Yeah, that seal. The crowd outside is buzzing, and reporters are practically shaking from adrenaline. Because what started as a joke, a meme, what if, has become real. He's just been elected President of the United States. And no, it wasn't some ego-fueled campaign or PR stunt. It was a movement. A wave of people, every race, age, belief, rallying behind a man who reminded them what leadership could look like when you trade arrogance for authenticity and soundbites for soul. He's wearing a suit, sure, but the tie is a little loose. The sleeves are rolled up. And just before he steps out, he glances down at his wrist. There's an old rubber bracelet there. Faded letters. It says, $7. He closes his eyes for a second. Not out of nerves. Out of gratitude. Because somehow, that kid who once got laughed off the football field, booed in the wrestling ring, and told, "You'll never be more than your muscles," just made it to the most powerful office in the free world, not by changing who he was, but by leaning all the way in. The curtain lifts. He walks out. No swagger. Just presence. The crowd explodes, not with adoration, but with belief. Because what they're cheering for isn't just him. It's the idea that maybe this world still rewards kindness, still recognizes grit, still believes in second chances. June 4th, 2025, 1300 hours. And as he raises his hand to take the oath, a single thought echoes in his head, one he's carried since the day he was broken, but not done. If I can do this, so can you. And maybe, just maybe, that's how the story ends. With a kid from nowhere, reminding the whole damn world. Everybody matters. And legends? Legends don't retire. They rise. Again. And again. And again. Let me know if you'd like me to swap this new ending into the full document and export it for you.